Senator David Leyonhjelm, many thanks for joining the AGA YouTube channel. I understand that recently you've been to Israel, and I would like to ask you a few questions about that. How did you come to take an interest in Australia foreign aid to the Palestinian Authority and the United Nations Relief and Works Agency?
I've had a pretty sympathetic attitude to Israel for decades, I suppose. And I was broadly aware of the issues that surrounding the conflict with the Palestinians, the history of Israel, and the arguments about refugee status in the Palestinian areas. But it wasn't until I went to Israel that I became aware that Australian foreign aid was potentially helping Hamas. And Hamas is a terrorist organisation, everybody agrees with that. And so I thought, well, there's something practical that I don't like that Australia is doing, so maybe I should focus on it.
What impression did you gain during your meetings in Israel earlier this year?
Well, I felt apart from the fact that I couldn't read any of the signs because they're all in Hebrew, I felt totally at home there. It's very much like Australia, pretty relaxed, and the people are, instantly recognisable as could be Australians. More so even than Japan, where you can't read many signs, but also a very nice country, and Taiwan.
Sure.
Another very nice country, but no signs that you can read.
That's right.
But you feel at home there up to a point. But Israel, probably more than both those countries.
You made asked some questions at the budget estimates hearing earlier this year. What did you hope to achieve when you?
Well, when I got the evidence from Israel that our aid was potentially helping Hamas, I thought, well, this is something that I should at least shine a light on. So my objective was to embarrass the Australian government into reviewing its aid program for the Palestinian Authority and the aid organisations there. What I wanted to do was to force a reconsideration of what was going on. I suspected that it had just been a set and forget for a long time, and I wanted that to stop.
Do you think that they've gone far enough, or there's more room to go?
No, there's more to go. So what happened was the questions in estimates that I asked in estimates then got picked up by the Daily Telegraph. The Daily Telegraph did a big splash story about how Australian aid was being channeled to support terrorists. The government then said, okay, well, we're going to redirect, I think it was $10 million worth of aid direct to the Palestinian Authority. The problem is the Palestinian Authority also pays money to incite terrorism.
Sure.
So it's questionable whether any aid at all should go to the Palestinian areas, and particularly so long as they have this inherited refugee attitude. You know, the idea that you can be a refugee because your parents or your grandparents were refugees. I think it's bizarre, and it doesn't apply in any other category.
Yeah.
So I noticed that the American government has just recently announced that they're going to cease funding of Palestine on that basis.
Do you think Australia should follow what Trump has done?
Yes, I do. I think it'll force change. I mean, the reason that the status quo has been maintained for such a long period of time is because the money has gone that way. Now, when the money changes, the status quo will change, and it will force a reconsideration. Okay, are we doing the right thing for these people? They're being kept as refugees in countries like Syria and Lebanon and Jordan. They're not allowed to join mainstream society. If the money gets cut off because they're no longer classified as refugees, maybe those countries will say, okay, well, they're not really that much different from us anyway. Why don't we integrate them into our society? And let's get on with life. Allow them to get on with their lives.
There's been a lot of discussion in Australia about both level and mix of migration to our country. What are your views in that respect?
Yes, the debate's not been very nuanced up to now. It's focused mainly on numbers. Are the numbers appropriate? Should we reduce the numbers? And is high immigration good, or is it too high? I don't find that a very constructive debate. I would much prefer to see us discussing the quality of immigration. So the quality is, are they skilled or family reunion? Family reunion tends typically to cost taxpayers money. Mm-hmm. Skilled immigrants typically contribute to the country. So an emphasis on skilled immigration, a less of an emphasis on family reunion would be how I'd go. The other thing is that this notion that we're full, that Australia is full, it is not the view outside of the big cities. Sydney and Melbourne in particular, to some extent Brisbane. Once you get to the other cities, they say, no, we're not full, we'd like more people. There would be more demand for everything, house prices and the whole thing. There would be lots and lots of people who would say, no, let the immigrants come in, as long as they integrate, of course. And that brings us back to the quality component. We want people who will become Australians. Post-war, since 1945, we've accepted millions and millions of people, and they've come here and said, okay, now I'm an Australian. Yes, I can still speak my language that I brought with me. Yes, I'll still eat my food and respect the cultures that I brought with me, but I am now an Australian. We welcome people like that in this country. We do have some people now who come to Australia who say, okay, I'm just going to maintain my old country and I'm not going to accept that I'm an Australian. I don't even like the fact that I'm in Australia. It's just that it happens to be economically convenient for me. And that's a relatively small number of people is what's pissing off a lot of Australians. They say, well, they're not like the immigrants we used to have. And that's what's they're motivating many of them to say, well, we've got enough now, we don't need any more. I think they're wrong. We just have to be a little more selective about who we bring here. I am in favour of high immigration, provided the quality is there, provided they are the contributors and integrators.
Senator, many thanks.
My pleasure.